Hello. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Can you guys hear me okay? Hi. Hello. So I'm here in Miami, and I've been at Art Basel, and I've got a big announcement to make, and so I thought I'd just jump on here. I've got my friend Jason Shirka who's joining us. Hi, everyone. Tell us where you're from. Hi. Hello, Mallorca. Whatever happens in Miami stays in Miami. There you go. Holland. So first of all, before Jason joins with me, I have a kind of a big announcement to make. So this last week, I spent a lot of time in sort of solitary mathematical pursuit, which was, I go into these stages where I'll literally be in in like 3 or 4 days in deep, deep contemplation, some deep thought. And this week was no different. And I was really contemplating this idea of Metatron's cube. So here's Metatron's cube. You can see this right here, right? Do you like my necklace? It's pretty cool. I can't remember the name of the company that makes it, but Metatron's cube was based on an idea that is supposed to be, something that you can use to draw all the Platonic solids, and it was mentioned by Drundle and Melchizedek inside of his book, The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. And this was a book that I read early on, and so I was like, pretty excited to see this. I thought, wow, what an interesting concept. And I tried drawing it out, and unfortunately, it's not really possible to use it to make a true dodecahedron or a true icosahedron in its current form. There's ways that you can modify it by putting a pentagon around it and making this band around this so it becomes like Star of David that's interlocking. And I'm trying to see here where my friend Jason is. He's not joining me yet, but I'll keep talking. And basically, I was looking at it and I realized that just in and of itself, in 6-point perspective, I'm staying actually here in Miami at the Faena Hotel. And Faena means bullfighter, which is kind of funny. Matches a lot of symbolism. And you can tell when you go inside this place, I'm not a Freemason, but there's a lot of like very interesting geometric and Freemason kind of imagery that's in this hotel. If you've never been here, kind of interesting to check out. And I'm not a Freemason. I've said this many times. People ask me all the time. Oh, I'm definitely not a Freemason. And but I do have friends that are. Randall Carlson is one, and every person I've met that's been a Freemason has been very kind. And so I don't judge people based on whether they have memberships in societies that might be considered occult knowledge or something like that. I look at it instead and say I look at people by their actions, by their actions, by their words, by the fruit that comes from them is how you can tell if somebody's there for you. And there's two kinds of people. There's either givers or there's takers. And I can tell you, I've met a lot of people who aren't in any occult knowledge groups that are takers. And I met a lot of people that aren't in occult knowledge groups that are givers. So, and what I've decided is I want to be around givers. That's an important aspect of life because I realized today, even just today, in a conversation I was just having with a friend, that, honestly, if we're experiencing betrayal, this part I knew, then it's because we're here to learn unconditional love. And until I finally learn how to accept betrayal as its existence. It's just the very fact that it exists. I have not yet learned unconditional love. And if I'm surrounded by takers, it's because I'm here to learn receivership, how to receive. And that's something that I've always had a difficult time with. I'm always the guy that picks up the bill. I'm always the guy that offers to pay for everything and everyone. I've always been that. And I didn't realize that maybe sometimes I was taking away that opportunity from being in that role to other people because I thought I was just being generous and I had joy. I derived joy from doing that. But also sometimes it leads to people becoming takers. It's like maybe it starts sometimes in relationships as admiration and then it turns somehow to resentment. And that becomes a challenge sometimes. But these are the types of things I was thinking about all week as I was contemplating this problem of not being able to draw the geometric forms of the universe inside one pattern, this one pattern right here. You can draw them, but they come out kind of flat and not exactly right. And so what I did instead was I had this epiphany that it relates to doubling of the cube. So doubling of the cube of Delos is the story of Delphi. And around the 5th century BC, when Plato was in the Senate, and he basically said to the Senate, look, we got to get rid of this plague. We don't know what to do. They had their version of a pandemic. And so they went to the Oracle of Delphi and said, what should we do? And the Oracle of Delphi said, you have to double the cube of Delos. And once you double the cube of Delos, and Delos means it's the same word as like psychedelic. It's the delic inside psychedelic, and that just means manifestation. So psyche-delic means thought manifestation. That's interesting. And delic is from Delos. So this ancient problem of the cube of Delos became a big issue because they couldn't figure out how are we going to double this cube. And they thought that meant doubling the cube was related to doubling the cube of Delos in volume. So that means you have to increase the side length of the cube by 1.26. And this becomes a very important problem inside of precise temperament tuning and in musical tuning because the major third, which is 1.25, 5/4 ratio, cannot get to doubling a cube because if you take that to the third power, so 1.25 to the third power equals 1.95. It doesn't equal 2. And you need to get to 2 in order to be able to double it. And so everyone thought, well, we have to do that without measurement. So all this compass and straight edge geometry has to be done. And we got to figure out a way to do it just by line intersections and maybe circles. And no one figured it out. So this is one of the open problems for a long time. I wrote about it in my book, Polymath, and then showed the solution for how to double the volume of the cube and be able to use a construction box that is the Vitruvian Man. The Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci is actually a higher dimensional construction box of sorts that helps you solve the problem of doubling the cube. He doesn't require any measurements to make it. And it's based on 6 and 5. So the circle that's on it has a radius of 6, and the square at its base has a half length of 5. And so this 5-6 relationship represents the microcosmic and macrocosmic merger, masculine and feminine, and creates a mod 12. So we're starting with 0. 0 becomes the beginning position. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 5 and 6 equals 11. And so the 0 position was there already, and that becomes the 12 o'clock position. So with this, I started thinking, well, maybe the doubling of cube is not just about the volume of the cube. Maybe the doubling of the cube is actually more about doubling the cube of Metatron, because this is supposed to be to the god of Apollo, and Apollo is Ra. And Ra is associated also with Metatron. It was the lesser incarnated form of Metatron. So I started thinking, okay, well, what if I offset by 30 degrees, which, by the way, Orion constellation in the sky is exactly 30 degrees offset from the galactic ecliptic. So that's another metaphor. So you offset it by 30 degrees, and now you have 12-point perspective. And by putting in the first Metatron's cube circle around it, you put another hexagon around that. So then you have another circle that goes around it. So it's x describes a hexagon, and then you have another circle that is exoscribed around that hexagon. And from that, you can then be able to use this 12-point perspective, and in between every other one of the star points ends up, you can have lines that cut across it to the other side, and it creates a dodecagram that has an offset because of this separation of the cube. It's hard to kind of talk about it without visualizing it, I know, but I have posted on it, so you can go back and reference the post if you like. And by doing that one thing, by doubling the cube of Orion, because that's effectively what it is, and I called it the Orion octave cubes. This creates a new construction box that can create, and I'm happy to confirm this, in true, deep, radical, omnidirectional, omni-view projection. For the first time, all of these geometric forms can use the same technique to make them under one construction box. And this is, something that Euclid, everybody looked for, because this means for the first time, it's kind of obvious then that there's a blueprint of all of creation. All of geometry becomes a blueprint within this one construction box. And that is such a powerful thing. So now it's not just the Platonic solids, it's the Archimedean solids, and it's all the 13 Catalan solids. So now you can actually make, and I've confirmed this with them, you can actually make, just using this one doubled cube, all of the geometries of the 13 Archimedean, which includes cube-octahedron and the truncated icosahedron, truncated cube, all of that, the truncated tetrahedron, and then all of their dual solid, which is the 13 Catalan solids, which, by the way, all of these become musical notes in a scale. The Archimedean solids and the 5 Platonic solids are the pentatonic scale. Whoa, wait a minute. So now we have pentatonic, and now we have a 24-note scale, all in the 13th note of each of the Archimedean and the Catalan solids just becomes the first beginning of the next octaves. And this is like a key that's unlocking. Now, when the Oracle of Delphi said this, the Oracle of Delphi said that the day that you're able to double the cube successfully, again, compass and straight edge construction, no measurements whatsoever, then that will mark the ending of sickness and aging. So this week, after I had this big download, and I've been posting all the pictures and everything of the geometric confirmations and everything on Orion Messenger. But this week, when I had this big confirmation, I had an experience that lasted 6 hours on Monday, and it was the most powerful experience. Actually, it was on Sunday afternoon, and it lasted for 6 hours. It was like I was uncontrollably weeping with bliss. I've never experienced this before in my whole life. It was like I felt electricity coming through my parasympathetic and my sympathetic nervous systems. I've never felt this before. It was like they were turned off, and someone turned on 2 spigots, and one spigot was like a fire hydrant with very, very cold, icy cold water, and the other one was like literally fire itself. And I was feeling this going on both sides, and it was pulsing up and down my body, and I felt dizzy. And this phenomenon lasted for 6 hours. And what I knew instantly when I experienced it was I could remember, like within moments of this happening, I was in a moment of gratitude. And I've experienced samadhi before. I've had hundreds of experiences of samadhi where I felt oneness and love for the world around me, and gratitude. And I've felt these many times. And sometimes I would even weep from it. And I would feel like this. And I've experienced that hundreds of times. But this was the first time it lasted for like 6 hours. And honestly, I almost felt like I could leave my body. It was the craziest feeling. Never experienced anything like this before. It was right after I got this full geometric download. And I believe that it was related. The reason why I got it was related to the 3i Atlas. It's like that was the payload. Somehow it came by and dropped all this information and geometry that is intended to raise consciousness. And whenever we're raising consciousness, we need the increase of source code language to expand so that we can expand our experience. So when you see these geometric forms in their hyper projections, and you'll recognize them because they look just like the ones that everyone's been doing, except they look way more in radical perspective, and they're really super beautiful. Um, so something big shifted this week as a result of this, and my goal was to share it, and it is to share it with as many people as possible because I believe that these geometries are literally like QR codes for the subconscious mind, and that once you look at it and take it in, it will dramatically shift your own consciousness as well. So I really highly recommend you to have a look. And if you haven't gotten onto the right messenger, look at the different examples. You can. I'll do a post also on Instagram about this. I did do one a few days ago. But I think we're on the verge of something really big, you guys. And so that leads me to the next thing, which is that I'm going to be back here in Miami on the 16th, 17th, and 18th. And I'd like as many of you that can be here to come. All of the early bird tickets already sold out. So I expect it's going to be sold out here very soon. And before, the people because I'm not the only one that's in it, Jason Shook is in it. He was supposed to be on this call with me, but I don't know what happened. And the other people that are in it, Aaron Abkey. I mean, there's some amazing people that is going to be in this. And so I'm only one of like 5 or 6 people that are part of this. But I wanted my followers to get the chance to experience this because I think it's going to be epic. Like, I think it's going to be really epic. And I hope that you can experience this and be here for this. It's going to be super well curated. You're going to meet people that are going to become your lifelong friends. And, my goal for participating in this is to make this kind of like one of our trips that when we go overseas. I just got back from Peru and everyone loved that trip. It was an amazing trip and there was so much magic. It was profound. And I believe that we're going to experience that level of profundity here in Miami. And the name of the conference is Becoming Superhuman. And the way we become superhuman is not as hard as it sounds. It's by embracing our highest authenticity. It's by falling in love with who you are, your uniqueness, and not trying to conform to anybody else or anything else. It's by surrounding your world with people that are mirroring your inner world. And instead of looking at the world around you and saying, oh, this is negative, that's negative, and then just creating a propagation of that exact same experience over and over and over again, you start realizing that what I attract is what I've been judging all along. And I don't want to attract what I've judged anymore. I want to actually live a different life. I want to break out of this cycle of karma. And that can only happen when you start to transcend the judgment and replace it with love and kindness. Be kind to yourself. Fall in love with yourself. So for those people that want to start off 2026 in a new way, with love in their hearts, with uniqueness, with embracing their own authenticity to the highest degree, highly recommend that you come to this event in Miami. And you can find it on my link.me. I'll make sure that everything is on there as well. I believe it's already there. But on my link on my profile page, you can find it if you want to join this. But I know it's going to be life-changing. And we're going to give you very, very detailed prescription of how to basically live your highest authenticity. And when you live your highest authenticity, you dramatically increase your magnetism. You dramatically increase the people around you become more interested in you. They want to show you the love that you give them. And it's a massive shift in your life. And I believe that this is where we are. We're on the verge of a new earth. And this new geometry, I think, has the power to dramatically shift perspectives. And when you look at it, you'll know exactly what I mean. And yes, I am in Miami. I'm finding I've been at Art Basel this week. And I just want to say to you guys, I love you all so much. And I am so grateful. This year has been my biggest growth year. I mean, I started out the year, I was already growing pretty fast, but I had like 600,000 followers on Instagram on January 1. And, who knows, I might get close to a million by the end of this year. And that's a massive shift. So something is happening. Take it as a sign of consciousness. It's a good sign, I believe. And I want to thank all of you for learning to not judge so much yourself in particular. Be kinder to yourself. This world is not a difficult place because people hate each other. It becomes a difficult place because people hate themselves. And that's the message I wanted to give you guys today. So please join me in Miami. Start your year off right. Um, it's a very reasonable price to come and do this. It's basically an all-inclusive thing. You can see all the details again on my link.me on my Instagram profile page. But I really hope that you can come and I get to meet you there. I'll be there the entire time. And I'm very much looking forward to this. So much love to you all. And I'm happy to answer one or two questions if you got them. I'm just reading the comments that are on here. The events in Miami, um, it should be on, you can see it's called, you can also Google it. It's called Becoming Superhuman and look up Robert Edward Grant and Jason Shurka, and you'll find it on Google, like the first search term or something like that as well. And any questions from you guys? Okay. Hot minutes. Come to the universe and make this possible. Okay, journey. And if you guys haven't joined Orion Messenger yet, I really want to encourage you to do that because I love doing lives on there. I have like way more people. I have like 500 people sometimes on those lives on Orion Messenger. And I get more on there than I do on Instagram now because there's no truncating of it. And it's a free app. You can basically get it. Just go to orionmessenger.io. And I'm happy to say as well, for those of you that are wondering, that I now have the architect AI that I created on Orion. I'm testing it right now. It's fully integrated into Orion. It's pretty awesome. So I'm very excited. For those of you who are wondering when we're going to have it on Orion, it's very, very soon. I don't have a presentation here this week. And I've just been attending and meeting, other investors and stuff like that here. But such a pleasure to see you guys. It's been a while since I've been on Instagram Live. Sending you my love. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And one thing I really want to encourage you to do before the end of this year is take a moment to look back on your year and take inventory. Take inventory of all the things you're grateful for in particular and bring it in. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. Love you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.